Misunderstanding becomes inevitable. Those who knew the old you often believe they know the whole story. They remember who you were when you doubted yourself, when you needed approval, when you were more flexible with your boundaries. They recall a time when your voice was softer, your presence more accommodating, your dreams less demanding. That memory becomes their reference point. So when you grow beyond it, they struggle to update their understanding, not because you are wrong, but because change requires them to let go of familiarity. Misunderstanding begins when your growth no longer fits the narrative they built around you. You speak differently now. You move with intention. You no longer explain yourself the way you used to. And instead of curiosity, you are met with confusion. Instead of support, you receive questions disguised as concern. They ask what happened to you, as if growth were an accident rather than a choice, as if becoming more aligned were something to be corrected. You may notice that people start interpreting your silence as arrogance, your boundaries as distance, your confidence as coldness. They attach meaning to your transformation without ever asking you what it cost. They do not see the nights you wrestled with doubt, the moments you chose healing over habit, the courage it took to stop being who they expected. They only see the difference, and difference unsettles those who rely on predictability. Being misunderstood by those who knew the old you can feel deeply personal. These are people whose opinions once mattered, whose presence once felt grounding. Their inability to see you now can make you question your own clarity. You wonder if you have changed too much, too fast, too far, but growth rarely looks gentle from the outside. It looks like disobedience to old roles. It looks like refusal to stay small. Often the misunderstanding comes from loss. When you change, people lose access to the version of you that served them. The one who listened endlessly, the one who tolerated inconsistency, the one who stayed even when it hurt. Your growth removes that access, and instead of grieving it honestly, they label you. They say you're different, distant, difficult. It is easier to misunderstand you than to admit they miss who you used to be. There is also fear beneath the misunderstanding. Your evolution forces others to confront their own stagnation. It reminds them of choices they postponed, truths they avoided, growth they resisted. Rather than face that discomfort, they project it onto you. They question your motives. They doubt your intentions. They rewrite your story in a way that allows them to stay exactly where they are. You may try to explain yourself at first. You offer context. You soften your words. You revisit old conversations, hoping to be seen. But misunderstanding rooted in resistance cannot be corrected with clarity. No amount of explanation can bridge a gap created by unwillingness. At some point, you realize that being understood by everyone is incompatible with being honest with yourself. This realization can be painful. You grieve the ease of being known without effort. You miss the comfort of shared history. But history alone cannot sustain a relationship when growth shifts direction. Some people only know how to relate to who you were, not who you are becoming. And expecting them to understand you now may be asking them to let go of a version of you they were attached to. Misunderstanding also teaches discernment. You begin to notice who asks questions to understand and who asks questions to control, who listens to hear you and who listens to confirm their assumptions. Growth sharpens your awareness of energy, intention, and truth. You stop defending yourself against every misinterpretation. You learn that clarity does not require constant explanation. There is strength in allowing yourself to be misunderstood without becoming defensive. It requires confidence rooted in self-knowledge. When you know why you changed, you no longer need universal approval. You stop seeking validation from people who are committed to outdated versions of you. You let their confusion be theirs. This does not mean you become indifferent. It means you become anchored. You hold compassion without compromising your direction. You understand that people can only meet you as deeply as they have met themselves. Their misunderstanding is not always a reflection of your failure to communicate. It is often a reflection of their inability to perceive growth. As time passes, you may notice that some relationships fade quietly, not with conflict, but with distance. Conversations become shorter, invitations less frequent. The connection dissolves not because of a single moment, but because alignment has shifted. This too is a form of misunderstanding, one that expresses itself through absence rather than words. And yet in this space, something important happens. You begin to attract people who meet you where you are, not where you were. People who don't require you to explain your growth because they recognize it. People who don't cling to your past because they are invested in your becoming. But you cannot access those connections while trying to preserve every old one. Being misunderstood by those who knew the old you is not a sign that you have lost yourself. It is often a sign that you have found yourself, that you are no longer performing familiarity for comfort, that you are choosing authenticity even when it costs you understanding. There is quiet freedom in accepting that not everyone will update their perception of you. You stop carrying the burden of other people's expectations. You stop shrinking to fit memories that no longer define you. You allow yourself to be seen clearly by those who are capable and misunderstood by those who are not. Growth does not erase who you were. It honors it by building upon it. But you are not obligated to live inside someone else's memory of you. You are allowed to outgrow old definitions. You are allowed to be misread by those who refuse to read the new chapters of your life. And when misunderstanding arises, you learn to stand still within yourself, to trust your evolution, to let your life speak louder than explanations. Because the people meant to walk with you forward will not need convincing. They will recognize you by the truth you live. There comes a point in growth where staying begins to hurt more than leaving. Not in obvious ways, not with sudden pain or dramatic collapse, but with a slow erosion of self. You feel it in the quiet moments when you know you are no longer aligned with the place, the people, or the patterns you keep returning to. You sense it when your spirit feels tired, not from effort, but from restraint. This is where self-betrayal begins, not with a single choice, but with repeated hesitation to honor what you already know. Staying where you've outgrown asks you to ignore your own awareness. It requires you to silence the inner voice that has grown clearer with time. You begin negotiating with yourself, offering excuses in place of courage. You tell yourself it's not that bad, that others expect you to stay, that change can wait. Each time you do this, you trade truth for temporary comfort. And over time, that becomes costly. Self-betrayal is subtle. It doesn't announce itself as harm. It shows up as numbness, as irritation without cause, as a quiet resentment toward the very life you once worked hard to build. You continue to show up, but without presence. You perform roles that no longer fit. You maintain relationships that no longer reflect who you are becoming. And the most painful part is not that others don't notice your growth. It's that you do and choose to ignore it. When you outgrow a space, your needs change. Your values deepen. Your tolerance for surface level living fades. Staying asks you to compress yourself back into a smaller version, one that can coexist with the familiar without causing disruption. This compression creates internal conflict. You feel split between who you are and who you're pretending to be. That split drains energy. It dulls joy. It clouds direction. Often, we stay because leaving feels selfish, because loyalty has been confused with self-sacrifice, because we were taught that endurance is a virtue even when it costs us our wholeness. But there is a difference between commitment and self-abandonment. Commitment supports growth. Self-abandonment suppresses it. When you stay in spaces that require you to shrink, you are not being loyal. You are being unfaithful to yourself. Staying where you've outgrown also distorts your sense of possibility. You begin to believe that this is as good as it gets, that your dissatisfaction is a personal flaw rather than a signal. You lower your expectations not because you want less, but because wanting more feels inconvenient. Over time, this resignation becomes normal. You forget what alignment feels like because misalignment has become familiar. Self-betrayal teaches your nervous system to accept discomfort as stability. You learn to tolerate what should be questioned. You stop trusting your instincts because acting on them has been postponed too many times. This creates a dangerous pattern, one where you seek external permission to move rather than honoring your internal readiness. There is grief in acknowledging that you have outgrown something you once loved. You may feel ungrateful for wanting to leave. You may fear disappointing others. You may worry about being misunderstood, but growth often asks you to grieve what no longer fits before it can offer what will. Staying delays that grief, but it does not eliminate it. It simply compounds it. Every time you choose to stay, despite knowing better, you reinforce the belief that your inner knowing is optional. That belief does not stay contained. It seeps into other areas of your life. You hesitate more. You doubt yourself more. You wait longer than necessary. And slowly, your confidence erodes. Not because you lack strength, but because you have been practicing avoidance. Leaving does not always mean physical distance. Sometimes it means emotional detachment. Sometimes it means redefining boundaries. Sometimes it means releasing expectations. But staying in the same pattern while hoping for a different outcome is a form of quiet self-betrayal. You cannot evolve in environments that require you to remain unchanged. There is also a loss of integrity when you stay too long. Your words no longer match your actions. You speak of growth, but live in compromise. You encourage others to follow their truth while avoiding your own. This dissonance creates internal friction. Your body feels it, your mind feels it, your spirit feels it. Integrity is not just about honesty with others, it is about honesty with yourself. Outgrowing is not an act of rejection, it is an act of recognition. Recognition that you are no longer the person you were when you first arrived. Recognition that what once supported you now limits you. Recognition that staying requires you to deny your evolution. When you honor this recognition, you choose alignment over comfort. Self-betrayal ends the moment you stop negotiating with your own truth. When you allow yourself to move, even slowly, even imperfectly, toward what feels expansive rather than restrictive. Growth does not ask for perfection, it asks for honesty. And honesty will always lead you forward, even when the path is uncertain. Staying where you've outgrown is not stability. It is stagnation disguised as loyalty. And the longer you remain, the more you teach yourself that your becoming is optional. But it is not. Your growth is not a phase, it is a responsibility you owe to yourself. Growth is often spoken about as if it were gentle, inspiring, and endlessly rewarding. But real growth is demanding. It does not arrive wrapped in comfort or certainty. It asks for emotional courage long before it offers clarity. Emotional courage is the willingness to feel what is uncomfortable without escaping, to face truths that unsettle your identity, and to keep moving even when reassurance is absent. Without this courage, growth remains an idea rather than a lived experience. Emotional courage begins when you stop running from your feelings. Most people are taught to avoid discomfort, to distract themselves from pain, to stay busy rather than be honest. Growth interrupts that pattern. It invites you to sit with emotions you would rather silence: fear, grief, disappointment, doubt. These emotions are not obstacles to growth, they are the doorway. Facing them requires bravery because they expose vulnerability. They strip away the illusion of control and force you to acknowledge where you are instead of where you wish you were. One of the first tests of emotional courage is honesty with yourself. Growth asks you to admit when something no longer fits, even if you invested years into it. It asks you to recognize when a relationship, a role, or a belief system is draining you, even if walking away feels terrifying. This kind of honesty destabilizes familiar ground. It challenges the identity you built to survive. Emotional courage means choosing truth over comfort, even when that truth leaves you standing alone. Fear plays a powerful role here: fear of being judged, fear of disappointing others, fear of failing publicly, fear of discovering that you are capable of more than you allowed yourself to believe. Growth does not eliminate fear, it exposes it. Emotional courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act in its presence. Each step forward feels like a risk because growth dismantles predictability. You no longer know how others will respond, who will remain, or what will come next. Emotional courage also involves grieving versions of yourself you must release. Growth requires letting go of who you were to become who you are meant to be. This is not a clean or painless process. There is sadness in acknowledging that some chapters are complete. There is loss in realizing that certain dreams belonged to an older self. Allowing yourself to grieve without rushing to replace what is gone takes strength. Many people resist growth because they do not want to feel this grief. But ungrieved endings become emotional weight that slows progress. Another demand of emotional courage is boundary setting. Growth teaches you that access to your energy must be earned, not assumed. Setting boundaries often feels confrontational, especially for those who learn to equate love with availability. You fear being seen as cold or selfish. You worry about conflict. But boundaries are not punishments, they are protections. Emotional courage means tolerating discomfort in the short term to preserve well being in the long term. It means choosing respect over approval. Growth also challenges your relationship with loneliness. As you evolve, you may find fewer people who understand you. Familiar connections may fade, support systems may shift. Emotional courage is required to stay present during this loneliness rather than retreat into old patterns just to feel connected. It takes courage to trust that solitude is not abandonment, but a season of recalibration. In these quiet moments, you learn who you are without constant reflection from others. There is also the courage of responsibility.
This is one. We live, man.
You can no longer attribute
That good Maya Angelou, man, this morning, man. Food for thought, you know? Food for thought, man. A lot of people don't got no direction in their life. A lot of people think that, you know what I'm saying, they going places when they just be going in a circle. We live in a time now, man, you know what I'm saying, well, man, knowledge ain't accepted, man. It's perceived as bossy. It's perceived as negative. It's perceived as, you know what I'm saying, people trying to run your life, you know? But it ain't like that, man. You know what I'm saying? You gotta understand this world was before we came to this time that we live in right now, bro. You know what I'm saying? You gotta understand that the world didn't get built off of this. If the world got built on what we living in right now, it'd be destroyed completely, man. You know what I'm saying? So just know that it was a lot of labor being that has been done in this world for us to come to this day, man. And it's only temporary. I told you, everybody got 100 years, man. Everybody got 100 years. We may be living in the 100 year time where it's like this, but these 100 years gonna fade away, and it's gonna be a different time we living in, dog. The Bible tell you, man, everything has its time. Everything has its time. A penny has its time to be the most important thing in your pocket at one time. Trust me, a penny. Because you might be somewhere and you might be one penny short. And you might be somebody might need that penny. And you could have 100 million, billion, $1 trillion. If you don't have one penny in your possession to get what you need, then guess what, man? You'll understand that a penny was more important than all the fucking money that you got, all the power that you got. Because wherever you doing your business at, them people need that one damn penny, dog. It's crazy. Everything got its time to be important, man. You know what I'm saying? So just be grateful and thankful for the time that we living in where you got a chance to experience everything, bro. You know what I'm saying? Leave that shit. Drop your jewels, man. Spread your knowledge, man, for whatever it's worth. You know what I'm saying? For whoever reject it, guess what? Later on they'll receive it if God give them a chance to experience life within 100 years. You know what I'm saying? But it'll double back on them. It'll double back on them. It'll do it for every human being, man. What you rejected early, man, you will hear later. Trust me, you will hear it later. You will live it later, man. Matter of fact, God's will. You know what I'm saying? God's will, you'll live it later. Yeah, peace and love, 561. We live right now, man. Enjoying everything about everything. We ain't got no complaints about nothing, man. You know what I'm saying? Straight up, man. Listen to that Maya Angelou, man. One of the greatest speakers and philosophers and teachers of all, man. Time. Greatest in the world. One of the greatest in the world. Greatest in the world. For real. Peace and love, 561. We out, man. Y'all have a great day.